Daring greatly, the transformative power of vulnerability. In Daring Greatly, how the courage to be vulnerable transforms the way we live. Love, parent, and lead, I, Brené Brown, a research professor at the University of Houston, share insights from over 12 years of grounded theory research, involving more than 1,000 participants and thousands of secondary data points, exploring the profound concepts of vulnerability, courage, shame, and worthiness. The title of this book draws inspiration from Theodore Roosevelt's 1910 speech, Citizenship in a Republic, where he speaks of the person who strives, who dares greatly, even in the face of failure, because they have the courage to step into the arena. This idea became the cornerstone of my work, as I argue that vulnerability defined as uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure is not a weakness, but the most accurate measure of courage. To dare greatly is to embrace vulnerability, to show up and let ourselves be seen, even when there are no guarantees of success or acceptance. This act of courage transforms how we live, love, parent, and lead, fostering deeper connections, authenticity, and purpose in our lives. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. It is the source of hope, accountability, and authenticity. And when we shut ourselves off from it, we distance ourselves from the experiences that bring meaning to our lives. I learned through my research that vulnerability is subversive in a world dominated by a never-enough culture where scarcity, fear, and the pressure to appear perfect drive us to armor up and hide our true selves. Yet nothing is as uncomfortable, dangerous, or hurtful as standing on the outside of our lives, wondering what it would be like if we had the courage to step into the arena, whether that's a new relationship, a creative endeavor, a difficult conversation, or a leadership challenge. Daring greatly means choosing to engage with vulnerability, to risk criticism or failure, because it's through this engagement that we find the strength to live wholeheartedly. One of the central barriers to embracing vulnerability is shame, which I define as the intensely painful feeling of believing we are flawed, and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Shame thrives in secrecy and silence, particularly among perfectionists, as it derives its power from being unspeakable. My research shows that shame, resilience, the ability to move through shame without sacrificing our values or losing sight of our worthiness, is key to daring greatly. This involves recognizing shame triggers, practicing critical awareness, reaching out to others for empathy, and speaking about our experiences. When we share our stories with those who have earned the right to hear them, shame cannot survive the presence of empathy and understanding. This process allows us to move from shame to compassion, courage, and connection, transforming how we relate to ourselves and others. In the realm of love and relationships, vulnerability is the heart of meaningful human experiences. Loving someone inherently involves risk waking up every day to love someone who may not love us back, whose safety we cannot ensure, or who may leave us as an act of daring greatly. I share my personal journey of struggling with vulnerability, realizing that my worthiness isn't determined by the reactions of others, but by the courage to be authentic. I strive to create a home where my family can be their bravest and most fearful selves, practicing difficult conversations and sharing moments of shame to build a culture of trust and belonging. Connection, I argue, is why we're here. It's what gives purpose to our lives. And vulnerability is the pathway to achieving it. By letting ourselves be seen, we foster trust and intimacy, creating relationships where we can say, I'm with you in the arena, whether we succeed or fail. As a parent, I've learned that daring greatly means letting go of the myth of perfect parenting. My research highlights that striving for perfection doesn't prepare children to be courageous, engaged adults. Instead, allowing ourselves to be imperfect, to make mistakes, and to share those moments with our children teaches them resilience and courage. I advocate for gratitude practices like keeping gratitude journals or family rituals as tools to combat the scarcity mindset and cultivate joy. These practices, often learned from those who have faced profound loss or trauma, remind us that joy and vulnerability are intertwined. By modeling vulnerability, we show our children that it's okay to fail, to ask for support, and to dare greatly in their own lives, creating a home where authenticity and connection thrive. In leadership, daring greatly challenges the traditional narrative of power as finite and hoarded. My work with organizations shows that daring leaders don't pretend to have all the answers. They stay curious, ask questions, and lean into vulnerability to foster trust and innovation. In a culture defined by scarcity, fear, and uncertainty, vulnerability is a uniquely human trait that machines and AI cannot replicate. It's about showing up, engaging with employees and teams, and having honest conversations about strength and growth opportunities. Feedback, when given with respect, builds trust and commitment, whereas shame-based cultures and organizations lead to disengagement and stifle creativity. The Daring Great Leadership Manifesto I developed calls for leaders to be courageous, to show up and be seen, and to create environments where risk-taking and authenticity are valued over perfectionism. Spirituality also emerged from my data as a critical component of resilience. The willingness to be vulnerable means accepting that life will sometimes knock us down, but spirituality, whether through faith, hope, or a sense of purpose, gives us the strength to get back up. I found that those who have faced the greatest struggles, such as loss or trauma, often teach us the most about worthiness, resilience, and joy. Their stories underscore that vulnerability is not just about individual courage, but about challenging societal narratives that equate it with weakness. By embracing vulnerability, we reject the culture of comparison, competition, and disengagement, creating spaces, whether in families, workplaces, or communities, where people feel worthy of love and belonging. Ultimately, Daring Greatly is an invitation to be courageous, to show up and let ourselves be seen, even when there are no guarantees. It's about moving from "what will people think" to "I'm enough." Through my research and personal experiences, I've learned that vulnerability is strength, not inadequacy, and that daring greatly transforms every aspect of our lives. Whether in love, parenting, leadership, or personal growth, the courage to be vulnerable allows us to live authentically, connect deeply, and find joy and purpose in the arena of life. As I've shared, this journey is not about winning or losing, but about showing up, being brave, and daring greatly every day.